Hey there, thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lane with Keep Inking Up. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up in San Antonio, Texas. And today I want to share with you a technique that I think is a lot of fun. It's a way to add color and shimmer to your project. So I hope that you can see that shimmer on this card. It's hard for me to tell if you can see it in video. In person, it's really stunning. So I hope that it's coming across in the video really well. So I want to share this technique with you. It's something that I've done quite some years ago, but I thought I would give it another try recently, and I really like the way it turned out. And you can use this technique with any stamps, ink, and paper that you already own. For this particular example, I used Mango Melody, one of my favorite colors, for the card base and for the ink. And then I used the Celebrate Sunflowers stamp set, and I used the soft suede ink for the sentiment and the sunflower image, and then I used a soft suede matte layer behind the Whisper White piece to pull it all together. So this is just an example of the technique we're going to share with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and put that aside, and let's do something a little bit different today. Okay, so for today's card, I'm going to use a couple of different pieces of cardstock. I'm going to use an old olive card base. So this is 4 1/4 by 11 inches and folded in half at 5 1/2 to create a standard A2 size card. And then I have a layer of garden green cardstock that is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. That'll go on top of the old olive. And then I have my stamping layer that is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And this is actually very vanilla. I always seem to use Whisper White, and I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and use Very Vanilla today. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put these pieces aside for the moment too, because we're going to work on this piece of Very Vanilla. And what I'm going to need is a clear block and an ink pad. And so I'm going to use my old olive ink pad because that's the color of my card base. And I'm going to open up my ink pad. And I am going to smoosh my clear block. I'm using the D block. The size of the block that you use just depends on the size of the stamped image that you want to use. In my sample that I showed, this sunflower is a large stamp, but I still did use the D block, but you could use a smaller block or a larger block depending on what you want, depending on the look that you're going for. But I tend to use the D block. It's my most used size block. So I'm going to smush my block into the ink pad. Wait, it's sticky. So hopefully you can see it's covered really well with ink. I think that's good enough. And I'm going to go ahead and close up that ink because we don't want to get the next part messy. And actually, because it is a little bit messy, I am going to bring in an oldie tool that I have. This is, I don't remember what this was called, a spray catcher. Anyway, you're just going to need something that you are able to spray something in because it's going to be a little bit messy. So I'm going to be spraying with shimmer mist. And I'm using my Champagne Mist shimmer paint right here that I put in one of our spritzers with rubbing alcohol. Now you do want to use, I use this 50% alcohol. You don't want to use 90% or higher because then the shimmer paint will just separate and it'll be hard to stick together. So just use a lower percentage, like 50% of rubbing alcohol and the shimmer paint. This is the Champagne Mist. We also have Frost White. Shake this up first to get the shimmer nice and spread in the paint, and then add a drop of that to the shimmer mist or the spray mist bottle, just a little drop, and then I usually fill up about 3/4 of the way with the alcohol so I have room to shake. And then you want to shake your mister really well to get the shimmer dispersed throughout the rubbing alcohol. And I think that looks pretty good. It looks pretty solid color. It doesn't look separated. But you want to make sure that's nice and mixed well. Hopefully you can see all the little shimmer spread out through there. Then I'm going to place my block in my spraying caddy thing here. Just a lid to a cardboard box would be fine as well. And now I'm going to spray, oops. I'm going to spray my block really well, and I think you can see that shimmer kind of glistening on that block. We can see how it went kind of everywhere, so it's good to have that protected, and you can see it's quite wet. Then I'm going to bring in my piece of very vanilla cardstock. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to drop the block onto my piece of cardstock. And I'm going to let it sit for a little bit to let the ink kind of soak in. This is going to look different every single time. If you want, you can kind of wiggle it a little bit. And you pick it up and there is the ink and the shimmer. Can you see that? I think it's just so pretty, all that shimmer. And this will look different every time. It depends on how much ink you have on your block and how much shimmer mist that you spray on there. It's going to be different every time. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure this dries completely before you do the next step. So I actually have another piece ready to go. Here's this one. This one's completely dry, but look how different those are. So it's different every single time. So I'm going to set that one aside to dry, and I'm going to use this one that is completely dry. And I'm going to bring in my deluxe foam mat because I'm going to do some stamping. I'm going to use the leaf from the Gathered Together stamp set. This is a stamp set from our new holiday 2020 holiday catalog. I think it's called August to December mini catalog. This is a stamp set that actually might look familiar. This was in our last year's holiday catalog, so some of you may already own it, but I'm going to be using this large leaf. So I have it mounted on another D block, and I'm going to ink that up using Garden Green ink because it's a little bit darker than my old olive, and it coordinates with the matte layer that I have for my card. So I'll ink up this leaf image really well, and I'm going to stamp that down in the center of my sparkly rectangle on my page. There we go. And now I just need a sentiment. Isn't that pretty? So lovely. So now I'm going to use my sentiment, and this sentiment is a thank you sentiment from the Peaceful Moments stamp set. I love this stamp set because it has so many sentiments that cover just about any occasion that you would need, and I love the combination of the fonts with the kind of scripty font and the typeface, bold typeface. So, but you can, like I said before, you can use any stamp set. You can use any sentiment that you have, any images that you have with this technique, just whatever you happen to have in your stash. So I'll ink up my sentiment, and then I'll stamp that right below my leaf image. That looks lovely. Go ahead and close up my ink pad because I'm done with that for now. Next, I will bring in my matte layer, and I'm going to adhere this using liquid glue. If you watch me, you know that I love my liquid glue because it gives me time to wiggle the paper around exactly the part that I need it. So I'm going to put some glue on the back of my layer and add that to my piece of Garden Green. And I can wiggle it a little bit until it gets nice and straight. It's a little bit bumpy because of the rubbing alcohol that I used. That looks pretty good. I'll turn that over and I'll add some dimensionals on the back. One in each corner and then two in the middle so it doesn't sag. Then I can remove the backings from these dimensionals. Okay, and then I can add that to my old olive card base and center that up. Just like that. Isn't that a pretty card? It's a lovely thank you card. It has a little bit of shimmer and a little bit of color. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful on how you can create some really pretty cards with a little bit of color and shimmer using our Champagne Mist shimmer paint. I wanted to go ahead and pull in another sample while I was creating this card. You can see how they're going to look different every time. This one has a lot more color. This one is a little more blotchy, so it just depends on how much ink you get on your block and how much shimmer shimmer mist that you get on there, how liquidy it is. But so anyway, I hope you found this video inspirational and helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.